Greetings, my friends. I hope we're all doing well. Now, there is a form of sinisterism, and it is called primordialism, a primal truth existing at the deepest parts of the psyche, truth from the abyss, if you will, the very foundation of being. And delving into this aspect of the sinister path makes me ask certain questions. Like, for instance, is gnosis the primal knowledge of the ancestors? Is this deep ancestral knowledge that we're able to tap into? Now, hereditary or ancestral knowledge is a reality, does exist. There are things we know, things we can bring up to the surface, to the ego mind, that somehow, in some ways, seem not to, let's say, correspond with what we have learned when we contemplate reality from the ego perspective. Things we can't explain. And is that what gnosis is? Now, also, staying within that theme, here's another question that came to me. Is Enochian the language of the collective unconscious? Something deeper than the personal unconscious? Something even deeper than gnosis? Something that is so primal? Now, recently, a couple of weeks ago, I went on an outing with my colleague, the Dark Fool. We participated in let's call it a 3-night-long pagan rite, if you will, a very dark pagan rite, where we dared to delve into the subconscious, into the underworld. We did partake in psychedelics, mushrooms, and DMT, extensive rituals, and we attempted to bring forth the knowledge of the ancients, of our hereditary primal ancestors. Here, as I like to say, here is where we find truth. And that which is much, much deeper than what our simple, on-the-surface ego minds can comprehend. Something so ingrained in us that most of the time we choose to ignore it out of fear. Now, why would we bother to delve into the primordial, into the inner depths? Why not just stay on the surface? It'd make life a lot easier, wouldn't it? You just accept reality for what it is. We just go along with the herd. We ignore the demon, the shadow self. We carry on in this ignorant bliss. The reason why we don't, the reason why we shouldn't, and no one on the left-hand path should, because if you don't get in touch with those primordial dark aspects, you're not on the path. And the main reason why we should is because of the lack of balance. The lack of balance in reality, and the ego mind, and the surface reality, and the conscious reality, whatever you want to call it, that begins at a deeper level. That begins in the collective unconscious. That begins at the state where the currents flow. The birth of the currents. The great cosmic currents, if you will, that dictate the course of aeons. And for the past 2,000 years, there has been a stark unbalance. Simply because the shadow self has been ignored. That's what we're doing on the left-hand path, is trying to reestablish that balance, that yin and yang, if you will. That's why we emphasize the darkness, that great primordial darkness that's been pushed down, ignored, repressed. And right now, we can see in this world what happens when that balance is off. Look at it. Look at this world. Look at the Abrahamic faiths battling one another, because that's what it is. That's the basis of what's going on right now in the Middle East. The Abrahamists are at one another. They share the same God. They share that same unbalanced perspective. They see the shadow in the other instead of seeing the shadow in themselves. Projection is easy. So how do we do this, Thomas LeRoy, you may ask? How do we achieve this balance? The balance begins with us. It begins with the individual. It's acknowledging the shadow self. It's acknowledging the demon. It's getting to know the demon. I've said this over and over and over again. I think we've all met that type. You can see it in individuals, not only in the societies as a whole, the great cosmic current, if you will, but you can see it in individuals. You know the type. You see that person that has a few too many drinks, suddenly gets mean. That person has never faced their demon. That person ignores their demon. And it can go to extremes even amongst individuals besides societies. A perfect example is the BTK killer. He was a good Christian. What was he, a deacon in his church? He was a community leader. He was part of some, neighborhood patrol or something. But he was a despicable son of a bitch who was completely out of touch with who he was. He could not face it, and when it decided it needed to make its presence known, he had no control over it. In conclusion, my friends, the demon, the shadow self, is your conduit, the psychopomp, leading you into the depths of the abyss, into a deeper understanding of the psyche, the primordial truth. Just don't be afraid to ask the demon for a little help from time to time, and If you do, he won't let you down. Until next time.